Hello, everybody. I do have it being 11:46 right now, so I was going to go ahead and start off. Welcome back. Hopefully, everybody got to take a small break. Now we're going to go ahead and go into the QCWA meeting with Rich Clemens, KB8AOB. Go ahead, Rich.
Thank you. Why, you always trip over the end of my call. Just remember alcohol on breath. Won't have any problem with it. A good friend of mine that was in emergency services gave me that handle when I first got my call, and I figured I better stay with it. Yeah, I'm going to share a few slides here. I want to give a brief introduction to my latest project, and that's with Winlink. But before I do that, see if I can maximize this screen here. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. If we can enlarge my window. This is a QCWA session, but I think look from the looks of the hairline of most of the folks that are here, you're probably all eligible to be members, and anyhow, we're glad to see everybody. QCWA is active in West Virginia, although I would like to see it more active. We've been meeting by Zoom. If you're interested, you can get a hold of me or any of the current QCWA members. We'd be happy to have you be a member. Low cost and lots of fun. We meet, we've been trying to meet monthly with Zoom. That hasn't had too many attendees, but we typically meet quarterly. Hopefully we'll get into in-person meetings sometime in the next decade or two. So what I want to talk to about today just a little bit is kind of my latest project was to get started with Winlink. And it actually happened on a couple of scenarios. The main one was I got a copy of, and I think it was Mike that was talking about this. And I suppose all the ARRL members also received a copy of the On the Air magazine. It's a little on the thin side, but it's not thin on information. It's extremely well done. In fact, I get my QST and I go, yeah, seen that page, yeah, seen that page, yeah, seen that page. And by the time I'm done looking at the QST, I may go back and read an article or two. But this little publication called On the Air is outstanding. And hopefully some of the ARRL folks are listening. But I would like to see us drop a few of the pages out of QST and pick up a few of the pages out of On the Air. I think it would enthuse some folks along the way. But in any event, that's just my side note for the day. The July-August issue, which just came out recently, has an article in it. Pretty much the whole issue is about emergency communication. And it has an article in it about Winlink. So I'm basically going to steal most of that and present a little bit of it. And this idea of Winlink has been around for a while. certainly not new. I did it a long time ago and wasn't particularly enthused, and was using it with VHF and had some difficulty trying to work with it, but found that it's been updated considerably in the last few years and works extremely well. So it has lots of layers, and there's a big internet layer in the middle of it. It has some what they call CMS, common message servers that help host all of the messages from all the locations really in the world. And you get yours via the internet to some relatively local RMS station. So this is you down here in the little shack that the roof has lost some shingles, I guess. And you're in the disaster zone, or you're close to it, or you're working in the disaster zone. And consequently, cell phone service is gone, and maybe power is gone. You're working on emergency equipment with emergency power sources, but you're up and running. You have a radio. It might be a VHF system. It might be an HF system. And it's a digital radio link. It's sending digital signals with sound over the RF from your antenna to a nearby antenna or a distant antenna on an RMS station. And this RMS station has power. It's not in the disaster zone. It's outside the disaster zone. And it still has internet, and it can still get to all these services. So you're kind of stranded out here with a kind of on a disaster island, maybe. And I've had this experience in Buchanan. You're on an island in a flood. I was nice and high and dry, but I couldn't go other than a couple of blocks each direction before I ran into water that was way too deep to get a car through. I actually had power and services, but I couldn't go anywhere. But I did have a radio link. And as long as your radio, whether it's VHF or HF, can get to somebody else in a remote message server station, they have internet, and it can go on and go anywhere in the world. And that's true anywhere in the world. So one of the abilities of this system is a large number of stations. And this map shows the stations on VHF. And this is not all of them. This just happens to be one small category. I couldn't get a map that had all of the different stations that were routinely on the air as potential contacts. But you could see West Virginia is well surrounded by stations in the area for VHF. So if you have some type of VHF setup that includes the capability to work some sort of digital protocol, whether it be slow scan TV or just anything, you can transfer and use Winlink. If you don't have VHF, maybe you have HF. Well, HF doesn't have as many stations that you can contact. However, you don't need as many stations to contact because you can go further with your signal. In fact, if I can find about where I'm at, about here, The stations that I use that seem to work quite well for me, one of them is in New Jersey, and the other one is in Arkansas. From where my antenna sits, and I'll talk a little bit about the antenna in a minute. From where my antenna sits, I seem to have a real good reach northeast, southwest. And I can pick up a lot of stations very reliably along that path. And because of a little device I have implanted in a pacemaker, my doc doesn't want me to run high power, so I don't. In fact, I usually run 5 watts or maybe 10 at the most. And my antenna is not much. I'm using a aluminum tripod in the side yard with a ham stick, 40-meter ham stick coming out of the top of it. That's a $60 antenna. So, and I can reach these stations reliably during the morning, evening. So I'll check my Winlink a couple of times a day anyhow. And I can work some other stations periodically during the middle of the day as well. And I could change bands, but I tend to like 40 meters. So there's lots of possibilities of making connections. In fact, you can make connections anywhere in the world. A lot of it travels by internet, obviously, but it doesn't have to. It can travel by HF, either directly or to a nearest node, that RMS that you might have. It's really an amazing system. So what do you send? Well, basically you send email. So here's an email that I received last couple of days ago, 25th of this month, from K4MIC, which I believe is mentioned earlier. He is running the West Virginia Winlink net, and he does it every Thursday. He's been doing it for a year. Anytime on that day between midnight of the night before and midnight of the 26th, you can check in. And to check in, you send a message. That message is pretty simple. It's your call. This is his sample line down here. Your first name, your town that you're in, your county, your state, and then how are you getting in? Are you getting in via VHF? Are you doing HF, or are you doing person-to-person connection? All of those are possible on many bands, not just isolated connection here or there, but on many locations. Anywhere you can connect to, you'll be on Winlink. So I send a message. I send an email. And on Winlink, you have the simple form like you have up here that you just have a to, and you can carbon copy to other hams if you like. Just put their call signs in. Put in what the subject is. You can have attachments if you like, images even. And then you put your text in and you post it to the outbox. Or, and there's really, I haven't counted them, but I'd say there's a close to 100 different forms that are available within Winlink that you can call up, and then you just fill in the blanks. So this, you might check in the case with what's called the Express check-in link, and you fill in the forms. Got some drop-down boxes. You can put in your location with longitude and latitude, and your message. And then you submit that, and it actually gets created into what they call an XML file. So you don't have to understand or have anything to do with, and drops it into a message form, which then goes to the outbox and gets sent. So there's lots of tools that are available in the whole process as well. And those tools allow you to send an item. Here's the response I sent on the 26th, a couple days ago. The message ID was created automatically by the system. The date stamp was put in there automatically. My call's already in the form or in the text. I put in the call for the destination. It's from me, it's my subject matter, and there's my text line. And I'm using a system called HF Vera. It is a very robust HF system that will allow me to transfer that email, short as it is, depending upon conditions, in a matter of a few seconds. It really does not take long at all. Now, you can use this with any application, but the requested services for most of these is to use the latest software that's available and to coordinate with others that are using that software. You can get used to it if you like. You can get used to Winlink by using a telnet connection. So you don't even need to use radio. If you just want to experiment with it, play with it, learn how it works, you can download the software. They will ask you for a donation, but you don't have to give it to them. Although if you get into it and do very much with it, I would encourage you to do that. It's used by, of course, emergency services. It's basically just email via radio. You really only care about the first hop. Where it goes after that is not important. It'll be directed automatically by the system. If you want to, you can use internet, although that is obviously not the best way to communicate in a true emergency. And you can use either VHF or HF. And you can send messages anywhere in the world. Low cost entry, you don't have to pay anything to get started. They will ask you for a donation. And if you use some of the advanced tools like I do, you do have to pay for them. You don't have to pay to try them out. They'll let you try the free version, but the free version is only the slowest communication link. And Vera is kind of interesting because it listens to the signal noise ratio that to the station that you're communicating with. And if it has some difficulty with the connection itself, it will speed up or slow down as needed to achieve the best possible communication. And it's 100% air free, assuming that the connection is working at all. So I sent one the other day. It was running at 1200 baud on HF. Very, very fast to send that short of a message on HF. So it is digital communication. If you use any kind of digital setup, whether it's for JS8 call, my favorite, or FT8 or FT4 or Q97 or whatever it is, you already have the setup on HF, or if you have similar capability on VHF. I would encourage you to get a hold of this article in On the Air. It's only about 2 or 3 pages long. I would encourage ARRL to print it in the QST. It's already ready to roll. It's just needs to be maybe shared a little wider than On the Air. That's what I have. Hope there's a few questions. We've got a few minutes left, but let me turn this off. See if I can get back to my Zoom.
I was just going to mention, I believe Winlink is almost at 25 years itself, is it not?
I think it is. Maybe it ought to be a QCWA member. Huh?
That's it. Because I do definitely remember it in the 2000s. Early.
Yeah, well, I played with it years ago. In fact, I played with it about 2 years ago. And I don't know, had issues of some sort. But even just in the last 6 months, it has really moved ahead in some of the capabilities. Unfortunately, that Vera software, if you pay for the full thing, is like 70, 80 bucks, but it is well worth it. It makes your sound card TNC as good as Pactor. So it really does. It doesn't use Pactor, but it's a very high transfer of data.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to entertain any questions. Also make an offer, since I feel sorry for the West Virginia Winlink net, since I seem to be the only West Virginian to check in. Get a lot of out-of-state folks, but we need some more folks around the state on Winlink. And I check into Virginia. Virginia has an extremely active net. I check into Oregon, Texas, Ohio, Wisconsin. Check into their nets as well. So, questions? Either eating or sleeping, one or the other.
Every time I really played with it in a few months, I'm gonna get back and play with it again. I think the biggest challenge for amateurs and aren't really technology savvy is the setup. Once you get the setup all ironed out, it works pretty slick.
Yeah, it's even easier to get it set up these days because people are already used to FT8 and some of these other things, because I switch back and forth with exactly the same setup between JS8 and Winlink. I don't change a thing. Cat resets my frequency and away I go.
I have a question about hardware. What kind of hardware do you need to add to your computer and radio system? This is George, W4OF.
Hi, George. You got the lure out of your mouth?
Negative.
Why, I have an old Yaesu FT40 or 840. And I have to use a SoundLink modem because it doesn't have any sound card built in or any real good highfalutin between that and the computer. But basically, you can either use a physical sound card or you can use a logical one, a software one built into the system. They have those too. You're basically just transferring sound, modulated sound over HF. So you basically have a speaker connection and a microphone connection to your computer, whether it could be direct with the newer HF machines or VHF, or whether it's older through a signal link or something like that. Doesn't take much.
Hey,
Richard,
I appreciate the information. Wanted to prove I didn't have that hook in my mouth.
Okay. I was worried about that,
Thank you.
George.
Well, you know how it is.
Okay.
Rich, it sounds as if you could run FT8 and run Winlink. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. Yeah, I just, my computer and HT are tied together, and I flip back and forth. It's just a matter of which software program I bring up, whether I bring up, and I do run FT8 as well. So whether I call up FT8, JS8, or Winlink, they're all the same. The computer stays the exact same settings, and off I go. You know, you don't want the wattage of your rig to be much more than a third of the max, and you want your ALC to barely move, if at all, which is the same for all of those, all three of those systems. So if you got FT8 running, all you need to do is download Winlink software and get it set up. Everything else will be the same.
Hey, Rich, this is a KD8AOB. Hey, I don't check in on the net as religiously as I should, but I use a VHF, and I either use a little TNC MobiLink 3 with a mobile setup, or I've also got it's one of the, oh shoot, I can't remember what it is now. MFJ just put them out. They bought it from somebody else.
TNCX.
TNCX, that's it. I could see the X, but I couldn't come up with the first part for some reason. But I use that sometimes to check in. But I have used the signal card in a HF to do it in the past. Before West Virginia had theirs set up, I used to check into the Virginia Winlink once in a while, and that's what I would use.
Well, I bought a TNCX, and I've got a big VHF, UHF antenna in the attic, but I can't seem to raise any stations close to me. Buchanan's kind of in a vacuum for packets these days, but yes, it's possible.
Yeah, we actually have a node in Pendleton County for Winlink, and then also we have a digipeater up in the same place where the Franklin repeater is that works pretty well. And if for some reason if the internet was down in our county, we can actually reach other nodes over in the Shenandoah Valley across the mountain in the state of Virginia.
Yeah, in my case, the HF works so reliable. I'm playing around with the VHF, but I haven't done much packet for years, and I still can't quite seem to get a station connected very reliably.
I think when we get our, we've been working at getting something set up through the Darren network. So I guess when we get a permanent home for that, I'm sure Mike will let everybody know, and you may be able to do VHF that way. It's a little slow, but it still definitely works.
Yeah, well, you don't have to sit there and watch it. So, you know, slow is not a real problem as long as the message gets through.
That's true.
Anybody else with questions or comments?
All right. Thank you very much for the presentation. That was pretty nice. Very informative once again. And I guess I will be seeing you all back at 12:45 for the awards presentation and council meeting. Please make sure you make the council meeting. We have several good topics that need to be discussed. So I hope